go on from there. So today we'll continue from where we stopped. Okay, so we'll still continue from OOP. So today we are going to write another class. This time we'll talk about class person. So this is a class for a person. And from what we've learned so far, we could start by initializing our class using this function. Let's say name, first name, last name, maybe age, location. Okay. Now, the standard way we could say self dot first name is equal to name, f name, self dot last name equal to f name. So these are where we are listing out the attributes of this person.
So I think we are doing well.
Self dot location.
And capital sizes, and also the center part need operation here and this new management. I think it's all the way forward. Like my English said, it's either you ship it or you ship out.
Let me say this
The
self
form
dot
today
age should be
is
self dot
it's something that I hope will be
day of
continued
birth.
in the agency, the reflect other departments and all that. A lot of problems and challenges were put forward.
Innocent, I don't know. Can you mute? So now today we have a class for a person, right? And so this class, whenever you're creating a person, we need this basic information about the person so we can form the attribute of the person, right? So we're just like
One of the participants audio is disturbing us too.
Okay. Let me see. I should be able to. Okay, I think I've muted them. Okay, so this is our constructor, our init function, which we've called on now to initialize this person. Whenever we say that maybe John is equal to person, so we are going to pass his first name. It should be capital letter. So his first name, let's call him person 1. Person 1 should be equal to, his first name is John. His last name is Amadi. His year, in this case, year of birth. Let's just say year of birth. He was born in year 2000. And obviously, you can define it and collect any kind of data based on your need, based on what you are doing, right? So depending on the model, the kind of data you want to collect for the person, that's what you use. But I'm just putting this here because I want to use it subsequently, year, to calculate the age. And then you could say it's located in Ghana. Okay. So we instantiate this person by providing those data. Good. So let's print person one dot first name, just to see, and run it. So if you see from the terminal, everything is okay. We have our constructor, and then we have one person that we've instantiated, and we print his first name. Everything seems to be working out okay. So now we've talked about methods, which are other functions that are accessible by instance of a class. So now we are going to do another function which I'll call age. That's why I actually took the bet here. Okay, yeah, and I need a class variable which is current year be equal to, it's a class variable. I hope we still remember what it is. So we are going to calculate this person's age by calling this function, and simply it will return. We can say, of course, it will take the first argument as self, in this case the only argument, and return self dot current year minus self dot year of birth. So when we do this computation, we should be able to get their age. Okay. Now this part we can access it like this, or we can also just use it as person, because it's a class variable. We talked about that in our last class, right? So let me see if I can get his age now. So I'll say age. Now notice that when I'm calling age, which is a method, I put brackets after it. Save it and run. So you see it's calculating its age as 24. Okay. Now, this is kind of like briefly the things that we've done in the last class. We talked about class variable or attribute, which is open to every member of the class. So if I go ahead and instantiate another person 2 to be equal to, let me just copy this. So I'll call this what I say now? Rita Oba Wole, and she is in Nigeria. Okay, so by the time I do this, I'm able to instantiate a second person. Now the thing is, if I check current age, current year, it will be the same for both of them because they are both objects of this class. So the class attribute is open to both of them, right? Now we could define another method, maybe let me say travel. In case the person travels, it will just take where you traveled to. So and update. Let's say if the person travels, so the location should be updated to where look. Now this is another method to anybody in this class. Whenever the person travels, you supply the location, and then the person's location would be updated. Now, both methods, they take self as the first argument, pointing to per instance person one. If you're calling it on person one, the first thing to be passed is person one, right? And then if you're calling it on person two, like that. Now, there are some methods that we can also call on the class as a whole, as against calling it on instances. You can call it by the instance, but it's going to act on the class generally instead of on an instance. Those are what we call class methods. So I'll give you an example of one, which could be something like if we want to change the current year. Now, the current year is 2024. We can just define a function to change it. Of course, we can change it directly, but just say for learning purpose, we can define a function that we'll be using to change it. But this now is going to be a class method. So usually class methods are put underneath a decorator. I don't know if we've taught decorator in this series. I don't think so. We've not talked about decorators, but there is this decorator. Decorator is a function that accepts another function as an argument. You know, most of the functions we've been dealing with, you have not started passing another function inside. Like here now, this method is a function, but we passed in an argument, LOC. We could have a function that accepts another function as an argument. That type of function is a decorator. And it's a little bit more than that. Maybe we'll talk about it in subsequent classes, but there is a decorator that you use when you want to create a method that is for the class in general instead of per instance. And we could just create a method using this to change year, assuming we want to change year, and then we'll put year. It's going to accept the year we want to change it to. We're just putting it there, and then we'll set person dot current year will be equal to year. So what this method is doing is updating the year. Okay, maybe you want to do some check. What will the person's age be if we were to be in 2025? So you can use this and update the year you're looking at. And when you do that, it's updating it for the class. It's not just for that instance. Okay, so these are how class methods are defined. And then they take the first argument as the class. So the class is passed into this method because of this decorator. If you don't put this decorator as class method, it's not going to work. Okay, it will rather work as a normal method for the instance. So to make it a class method, you pass this decorator. That is why it is here. In subsequent videos, we'll talk about how this thing is written. Okay, how we write decorators and keep them like this. So, but there are function. This function now, this decorator function is wrapping this function. Anyway, when we get there, we'll talk more about that. So this is how class methods are defined. So we now have some attributes that are to the class, as well as some class method. I hope that's clear. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, moving further, we are going to talk about one more method that can be available in our class, which is called static method. So a static method is any method that you need in your class, but you don't have to pass or change or modify any of the instance attributes, or you're dealing with the class attributes. For example, maybe I just want a method to tell me what day of the week it is, if it is a work day or a weekend, right? So I could have, but now for these static methods, they have their own decorator, which is static method. You have to put it before the function so that the class will see it as a static method. We could just say is work day. And now this one, you don't need to pass any class or self argument. So the first thing you pass maybe is the day we are just trying to check. The day. So we're just checking if that day is a work day. And the date class or library has something that a method we can use, which is weekday. Okay. Is weekday usually day.weekday usually returns a number between, I think, 1 to 6 or 0 to 6, where the first number represents Monday, I think, and so on and so forth. So when you say if day.weekday, we could say is equal to 5. 5, I think, is for Saturday. Or day.weekday is equal to 6. Then if it is one of those days, so either Saturday or Sunday, you can just say return false. Because if it's Saturday or Sunday, it's not a work day. Otherwise, you return true. So any other number that is returned should be between Monday to Friday, which is work day. So we say true. This is just a function to check if the current day is a work day or if any day is a work day. But this function, now what we are just using here, it could be any function, but what we're using it here for is to show us that this one has nothing to do with the instance variable as well, or the instance attribute, right? It's just a method that we need in our class. Maybe because of what we are developing, we may just want to check at a point if a day is a work day. So we included it in our class. It's needed, but it is not modifying the class attribute nor the instance attribute. So typically any function you define in your class that does not use those attributes, either the attribute that is particular to the instance or object or the class attribute, will classify it as static method. So those ones are static. Okay, you don't need to pass that first argument of class or self. So in instance method, you pass the first argument is the instance. In the class method, the first argument in the class. But in static method, you don't need that. The only reason we have day here is because we are using this day to check if it is, So now we'll just test some of these things. See, our class is getting bigger, right? Our class now has a couple of methods in it. Okay. So now we could just print out, first of all, to use the static method, because we are dealing with day now. So we have to import from date time, or just let's say import date time. The date time module is a module that is used when we are dealing with time. Time can be given in different formats. Okay. So we use date time module to work with time. You can look it up. Maybe just put it on Google, read about it. There are many things involved there. Anytime you're trying to deal with time, maybe you know, when we are dealing with time in programming, we could be given a timestamp, which could just be like a number. Every second has its timestamp. But that number, the way it is, it can be converted, or from that timestamp, you can extract the day, the month, the year. Okay? Every time has a timestamp. Every second has a timestamp. So you can extract even the hour, the minute, the second from that number. Now, when you're dealing with that kind of thing, now this library helps you to deal with it very well, with date and time. Okay, so let's use it now to form a day. So we could say that day is equal to date time dot day. Sorry. And pass, or the date rather, and pass it the year, let's say, and the month, and then a day, just random numbers. So we are kind of creating this day now in date time, okay? And we're going to pass it just to test our function, is work day, if it's working, okay? So we can then say print So I don't know these dates. What is this? But let's just see. Let's save it and run. So it returned true. What was that telling me? It is a weekday. Okay, let's try it with today's date. Today's date is 2024. Okay, this is 4. And today is 28. So we save it, and we expect that it should be false because today is Sunday. So it's false. Okay, basically this is just a static method. It could be anything, but we just put that for us to see that it does not have any relationship with the class variable or instance variable. So that is just about static methods and class methods. So at least we've gone through class attributes. Those are those attributes that are class-wide. Then we've gone through class methods, static method. Now, the next thing we are going to go into is going to talk about is class inheritance. Does anyone have any question at this point? Any question? Okay, in the absence of any question, we believe that we are having understanding of this point. So you understand that there are some...
Okay, hello, Coach.
Yeah.
This, that is line 27. This, yes, just that place, your static method.
Yeah.
This, if day dot weekday equals to 5 or day dot weekday equal to 6. I'm trying to understand how, is there a way to do it? Because is it that 5, or are there numbers that determines the weekday and maybe weekend?
Yeah. So under this library, which I imported here, right? We have this method. Okay, I just brought it in. It's not like we are talking about the level dot weekday. So you could call it on a day to check if that day is a weekday. Okay. Or not to check if it's a weekday. You just call it what day of the week is it. And it will return a number, okay, which ranges from, I think, 0 to 6. So each of those numbers tell you if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So having that knowledge, I could just write if day is a weekday, or if day dot weekday is equal to 5. I know that 5 stands for Saturday. I know that 6 stands for Sunday. But don't worry much about this. Okay. I just brought it here. It could be anything. But the point we are trying to say is that there are some methods that you just need to be in your class for some reasons. You know, the reason why we are doing this, remember, we said that class is like a blueprint. Okay. So I might be making this class because I need to have some person objects. Okay. The person object might not even need to check if it's work day. I just use this one to just show you that, okay, you could still have a function that is not related to the attributes of the class instance or the class attributes, okay? But you can still have such a method in your class, and that type of method is called static method. Then we also have the class method, which is the one that is class-wide. And I just remember now, before we even go for there, I think I should talk about that. When we are talking about class methods, one popular application of class method is in an alternate way of initializing the class. So if we have this class person that is going to receive first name, last name, the year, and the person's location, but someone has information about people that is stored like this. Okay, so the first name could be OB, and then he has maybe an OB dash, where OB is the first name. Okay, OB Namdi, and then the next thing is the year of birth, yeah, and his location. So let's say he was born in 1990 and is located in Israel. Okay, so maybe someone has a kind of database that store information about people, and it is stored like this. Okay, they just have it, or it could be in a database, or their own process is written such that people's details come out like this, and the person wants to use this class to make the person an object of the class in his own process. But the constructor we have cannot accept this this format. Okay, what we need to instantiate is you need to have the name, then the surname, the year of birth, and then the location separately. So if you want to use this now to form an object of this class, the first thing we need to do would be, maybe I have f name, which would be like, is it to split this data, f name, surname, year of birth, and then location to be equal to, let's say this were to be a string, right? S is equal to this now. It's a whole string on its own, but it came in that format. The first name is separated by dash Namdi dash 1990 dash Israel. So I can unpack it using s dot split, and I'll split by dash because they are separated by dash. When I do this, it is going to split this into like a list of items, which would be OB, Namdi 190 and Israel. But immediately, because of how, I think we've talked about this in previous class, I have these variables. They could be unpacked into these variables, and I go ahead and instantiate my class by saying the person. maybe person 3, or yeah, person 3 is equal to person, and I pass those variables. Okay. Now I have split this string to get the necessary variables I need, and I've passed it into my constructor to give me a person object, which I call person 3. Right? Now, this is possible, but I can write a method in my class that will serve as an alternate method or way of initializing my class, so that if this person that wants to use my class has a lot of data in this, I don't want him to be doing this outside of the class, splitting the data and then creating an object like this. I could move all these things to become like a method in my class. Okay. Now, of course, if he has to do this and there are maybe 10 people scattered different places in his code, he will have to be repeating this process 10 times. He will have to write this, and then he will now instantiate it. Okay. Now, to save him that stress and reduce repetition in his code, I can then write another method that he can use to instantiate or create an object of his class, which would be a class method. I'm just giving you a way that this class method is used, popularly. So I can say def from string. So then you pass the string. How do I say? Let me call it details string. Okay. I'll pass the details string, which I'm referring to this string that is the details of the person. So I'm going to pass it in here and perform all of this now in this class. Okay. Yeah. In this method. Let me put it that way. So here now, instead of splitting S, I'm going to split these details here. So now